Hey, you've summoned a lesser maker. If you haven't noticed already, this place is an absolute mess. And I need to clean it up so I can get some things done because I have a laundry list of projects to do. 9 projects to do, and I need to get like 5 of them done this week. I have Warband for my son. We're going to an event in San Diego, so if you're in SoCal, make sure you go check that out. It's called Slow Death Game Fest, and it's a free event with food included. That's next week. Another thing I need to get done is Kit Bash Chaos sent me a monolith to represent his warband on my table, and I need to send him one that represents my warband, and I still honestly need to figure out what I'm doing for that. Actually, that gives me an idea. One of the things I need to do is, speaking of D&D, I need to start planning out my D&D campaign that's happening Saturday. Oh my god. There's a guy named JT. He just finished a Witch Hunters Warband and wanted a display. He might be going to SDG Fest too, so I need to get that project done so I can hand it off. Keep an eye out for packaging for furniture. They have really nice, flat, square pieces of foam that you can use to build out a space. And this is going to be plenty of foam for many weeks of terrain building. So I think I want to do a city street. He gave me some dimensions, and the first thing I showed him, just as a reference that I could do, is that we could go this big. And he was like, let's try to keep it 2 stories. So now, how do I break those rules? I'm thinking, what if we do an elevated area, and then up here we can have a 2-story building, and then it can kind of snake down to this bottom street level. That way, technically it's a 3-story building, but he can't get mad at me because he wasn't specific enough. Nah, that's too much. We'll stick with something small. Just to keep myself limited, I'm gonna use some of these like templates. In all honesty, I can get carried away. I could get lost in the details for this forever. But honestly, all I need to do is cause a problem and then start solving it. When you're using this foam sealant as glue, you want to make sure you're pressing out all the air so it doesn't expand. So maybe a little bit more. I'm thinking a building that kind of overhangs over the street will be cool for elevation and gameplay. So this was a close one. I forgot that this is to display miniatures, and I thought it would be a good idea to put a wall around this, but this is a 28mm miniature, and it disappears. So I'm gonna take out the walls, and I think that's gonna be a better move. So I'm going to show you how to do some layered walls really quickly. All you need is 2 layers of foam, roughly the same height. And a spray paint can.
I take the spray paint can lid and I use it to cut out some archways out of some foam. And then I heavily texture it with a lump of concrete. And I find that concrete has a bunch of little tiny rocks in it that really makes it perfect for a brick texture. Speaking of the brick texture, I make a bunch of stamp tools into rectangles out of some old paintbrush handles. And because this is the foundation, I use a pretty large stamp tool. And I punched out all the bricks for this foundation. This goes super fast, and I have a whole video on the basics of using some stonework tools like this. If you're interested, I'll have it linked in the cards. And before you know it, this whole foundation is bricked up and textured and ready to be glued on. I decided to glue this on with just regular hot glue, but it probably would have been a better move to use the foam sealant and make sure that all the surface area was filled with that foam. But the hot glue still worked. And then to add a top to this foundation, I cut out a rectangle. I textured it really heavily with that concrete again, and then I glued it on with that foam sealant. There was a bit of a gap here, but honestly, it wasn't too big of a deal, and it doesn't bug me too much. So yeah, I should have weighted down with more things, I think.
One of the other things that I'm going to be doing soon is with the Scented Realms scent engine, I'm going to make it look like a terrain piece or like a spooky house or, just like the outer shell is going to be cool. Still going to be completely functional, of course, but I think that's going to be awesome. If you're interested in the scent engine from Scented Realms, the Kickstarter's soon, so go check it out on their website.
I cut out pieces for a building using the template from my Where to Start Mordheim terrain video, and I think this kind of just shows how easy these templates are to use and that you can use them with any type of material as well. When I cut out shapes for the doors and windows, I bevel the edge on my foam just to make it look like the masonry is kind of high end, and it just adds a little bit more detail and dimension to the foam walls. These green windows and doors are free STLs that you can grab on my Patreon. You don't need to be a patron, but I do appreciate the help if you're willing. Thanks so much to the existing patrons. You guys really make the wheels turn here, and I really appreciate your guys' support. Throughout this process, I'm continuing to texture the foam using that lump of concrete. I had a lot of pieces to go through, so I went ahead and did that everywhere. And I assembled the building and then realized I assembled it inside out, so I had to disassemble it and then reglue it together. I added some jut outs and window pieces just to kind of add a little bit of variety on materials. You can see that in the wood sections. And then I added some buttresses as well. And then I had to add a little bit more damage to make sure that the interior was playable and reachable. And then I bricked up the entire house just like I did the walls. To make sure that this really fit the witch hunter theme, I wanted to add a hanging tree. And to do that, I wanted to add a planter to kind of overhang the main street area and add a bit more dimension and surface area. So I built out a planter and I textured it with that lump of concrete. And just to make sure that it was really solid, I filled it with some spray foam sealant. And I built out the tree out of some sticks and twigs. I really reinforced this with super glue to make sure that it wasn't going anywhere, and made sure that there were plenty of horizontal branches to hang nooses or whatever I decided on later. When you use the spray foam, sometimes it'll puff up too much. So when it forms a skin, you can just deflate it a little bit. And yeah, it works pretty good. I wanted to make this planter look like it wasn't very well taken care of. So by kind of shrink wrapping the fuzziness around pipe cleaner off, I used the armature to kind of pose out and make some roots for this tree. After that, I wanted to make a bunch of gargoyles and like architectural details, and I have a bunch of molds. So I made some ravens, some squig gargoyles. I have a frog oil mold and some cobblestones too for some of the hard to reach areas that I can't quite texture. And then it was time to add some air dry clay to really make this come to life. I'm just using some regular Crayola air dry clay here, and by applying some regular school glue to the foam, I'm able to make sure that this really adheres to the surface, and by putting some school glue on top of this as well, I'm making sure that this isn't going to crack too much. Underneath the planter was kind of inaccessible, so I used one of those cobblestone molds and kind of added a bunch of the texture there so that it wouldn't just be blank. After applying a bunch of these molds, I used a texture roller that I got from miscast.co, but I think it's also on his itch.io. And then I made a sarcophagus a long time ago on my laser cutter, and I plopped that in just kind of as a callback. And then I started gluing in all the architectural details. So these are my squigoils, and then my Mordheim raven. I really love this detail. And then I glued in some frog oils, and I had some left over, but I wanted to finish off the roof of the building. And to do that, I just used some jumbo popsicle sticks, and this makes the planks pretty wide, so it goes pretty quickly, but it adds a lot of detail. They break up to kind of rough areas and edges, so it looks like the building's kind of decrepit and falling apart. It's a really easy way to add a lot of detail to a surface that could be pretty bland if you don't do it right. To kind of overload this building with details, I added some War Master miniatures I found on Thingiverse. I 3D printed them out on my FDM printer, and I glued them to the top, to the peaks of each roof crest. And this is a really nice way to kind of, top off this detail and break up the silhouette a bit and make sure that it's not too clean. After that, I added some gibbets. These are also on my FDM printer, and this is a free STL that you can grab on my Patreon. This last gibbet I actually won on Miniac, a Miniac live stream. So, it's really nice to actually use this one. To finish up the interior for this building, I added a bunch of the planks to the flooring, and it was ready to finally get sealed with the school glue and some paint. I add the paint just to make sure that if it chips anywhere that the black paint shows through. But after I do this step, I make sure I spray paint everything so that any of the hot glue spots, they're kind of hydrophobic, so the spray paint will make sure to cover it. I start off the stone with like a really pale blue, and I added a bit of brown just to add just a bit of color variation while I stamp it out over everything. This wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it did really make it look like it was being lit by moonlight. And once it dried out, it wasn't as bright as I was kind of afraid it might be at this point. After this, I switched off to a brush because there were some hard to reach areas, and I continued to finish out the foundation and the stonework that wasn't the building, and paint the rest of it. For the building, I wanted to kind of contrast the blue stone with a limestone type color, and the limestone's really great because it takes washes super well, and I plan on painting all of the windows green color just because I find that it adds a nice contrast, and the green wash really looks nice on this yellow. And the stamp texture that I spent so much time doing on all these bricks really comes through on that bright color. The bluestone foundation kind of put me in a bit of a pickle because that's kind of the color I like to usually paint my wood. So I made sure to kind of go back and forth and fine tune the wood colors on everything, especially in these areas. I usually like my trees to be kind of a birch color because it's super bright and it contrasts the man-made look of everything else. And so I kind of started off with a light brown tannish and then worked my way up all the way to the white of the birch wood. I just kind of spot this on everywhere, and eventually it kind of cobbles together to look like a birch tree. And yeah, the more random you go, the better it turns out. I don't just paint all my windows green. I also paint all my metals like oxidized brass color, kind of like the Statue of Liberty. And I really like this color because it contrasts really nicely and gives a pop of color that's pretty consistent across the rest of my boards. Although I'm not keeping this one, I think it's a signature that I wouldn't get rid of by any means. I really like green. It's my favorite color, and it seems like, I don't know, it's one of those colors that works really nice in my brain. Like I'm really familiar with it, and I can get really consistent results using some of the dollar store paints that I use. And as I mentioned earlier, I made sure to paint all the windows this color. For me, it's really easy to identify all the windows and doorways with a green. And I can say, hey, if you can see a green window, you can shoot through it. And it just simplifies things a lot. And then I painted the interior orange and red just to kind of look like the building is bleeding a bit, like it's an open wound. And the final step was to add a bunch of washes, a lot of that green color, because I felt like the rust and oxidization, sorry, that's hard to say, would have really colored the stonework here. And Because I had the tree there, I thought the brown and the dirt would have gone everywhere, especially if people were running through. And as a final touch, I added a flag that was in my second ever Mordheim video, and I don't know, it's cool to kind of get it a new life. And I freehanded that witch hunter symbol, and it really brings it together. I really just live for a finished product, and the whole goal when I'm making something is to get it all the way done. And I can't reiterate that enough. Practicing, repetition, and really refining a process really ignites creativity, because you get surprised, because the process, you get like stuck in the process, and you follow the motions of the build, and then at the end you get to see it all come together, and it surprises you every time. So yeah, so if I could encourage you to do something, finish stuff. It's always rewarding. So get some stuff done. Good luck this week as you finish your stuff. I got a warband to paint with my son, and I'm really looking forward to giving this to JT. I really hope he likes it. Man, it's crazy what you can do with just dollar store paints. I don't use anything special. So I hope that's encouraging to you. Be innovative. Use things that are cheap, and get stuff done. Make sure you like and subscribe to help out the channel. Leave a comment if you have a question. I answer every single one, and it also helps out the algorithm a little bit. Apparently there's like a hype button. I didn't really know anything about this, but whatever that is, and if you're interested in doing that, feel free to click that as well. Thanks for watching the end of the video. I really appreciate it. All right. Have a good one.